and I hit that moment where my depression just disappeared. I had never, ever in my adult life thought that I would reach that point again of just feeling like that weight was lifted off my mind. And then the pain started going with it.
Heidi, how did you find Carnivore?
Um, the YouTube algorithm did a really good one for me. I had tried to do keto in January of this year, and I lasted about 6 weeks before I hit about a 4-month binge. I just was really down. But YouTube didn't know that I was no longer on keto, so it kept suggesting things. I was already familiar with Ken Berry's videos, but I ran across Laura Spath and Kelly Hogan. So just kind of felt the mom vibe and enjoyed what they had to say and felt like it was really applicable to my situation. Um, the irony is really for me though that I grew up on a farm. My dad kept a herd of cattle and grew the grass and hay to feed them. So I grew up on really high quality beef and a lot of it. I probably should have known, but I thought I was smarter than everybody at home. And then, of course, there's the fact that when you have a family of 8, you have to make the food stretch. So there was lots of beef, but there was also lots of filler, rice, starches. And I knew I wasn't feeling well, but, I started studying nutrition and things and thought, aha, it must be the meat. So I I told my tired mom, how about you let me cook sometime so I can introduce everybody to some meatless options and, healthier things. Um, which was probably still for the better. Her prize winning sloppy Joe recipe for barbecue sandwiches had grape jelly in it. So, we managed to cut out a fair bit of the sugar, but nothing really stuck. And I kind of just gave up. I had gotten to such a heavy weight in high school that I was just struggling to get myself back under 200 pounds. I was desperate to feel better about myself, but it was just really always a challenge to feel like I belonged in my own skin. So, I left the farm, went off to college, and I just remember never really feeling well. Depression really set in during my early 20s, and I just remember thinking to myself, someday a doctor is going to find something really wrong with me, and I'm going to think back to this moment and go, that's why I feel this way. That's why I'm not doing well. I was living on a college campus where they really did encourage us to walk. It was about several miles to the nearest grocery store, up a hill, one of those ways. So I was doing lots of walking, lots of biking. I was keeping my weight down that way, but my dietary choices really just weren't doing me any favors. So, you eat junk like poor college students do. And it was the first time that I'd ever had to buy beef from the store. And I just remember thinking how unappealing it looked in that puddle of oil. So I tried to do the healthy things, smoothies, salads, but then there were also big dinner weekends where we invited everybody over and made lots and lots and lots of dessert. So, I just drifted my way through my 20s and I was really, really wary of diets. I had read all this nutritional information before and I had, tried to make better choices. I had watched my mom try to point me to diet after diet. Family members had butted into my life a lot. My grandmother was always trying to get my weight down by making me go on health walks with her or, you know, lecturing me about things. Um, Even though I was working on the farm all summer, it just seemed like nothing ever helped. So I didn't want to end up with an eating disorder because I could just tell that my brain would be that kind of obsessed if I let myself go there. Um, so I just kind of let my health take its course. Um, I got married when I was 26 and got pregnant for the first time a year after that. And it was a really bad situation right from the start. I got so sick right away. I was just throwing up every single day, multiple times a day, and in a lot of pain. I couldn't keep anything down. So I ended up, of course, in the ER, and they said I might be losing my daughter. Um, so I had to be so careful. I was on the highest dose of anti-nausea meds that they would let me have. And my husband ended up having to take a leave of absence from grad school because I couldn't take care of either of us. So my dear mother-in-law let us move into her house so that she could just literally nurse me the whole way through. I went into early labor as well, and it was just a struggle to make it to my due date. And I just remember thinking, finally, my baby's here. Everything's going to be okay now. But it just never was. Over the course of that time, I had gained about 60 pounds and was up to about 257, I think. Um, what I didn't know at the time was that this pregnancy had started a cascade of things, especially around my thyroid. A lot of women don't realize that they have thyroid issues until pregnancy. And what you'll see happen is that during the pregnancy, thyroid hormones will spike really high. And so you get one set of symptoms. But then after the pregnancy, as hormones subside and change, I ended up going very low thyroid, and I was just, my skin was dry and itchy, my hair was falling out, and I started once again having some neurological symptoms that I had first experienced when I was in college. It just started with this intense dizziness, um, you know, kind of like a vertigo. And there would be times when I'd be holding my daughter and I couldn't feel her in my arms. I just felt like partly dissociated, but also just numb. Um, there would be times when I would hit myself just to try and get some sensation in my arm, and I could feel that I was touching it, but I couldn't feel any pain. Um, so over the course of this time, I was just trying to figure things out, and I went through a course of doctors who were just not really willing to listen. I really believe that doctors try their best in a lot of ways. I don't think it's that they're out to deceive anyone or that they're uncaring. I just think that there is a lot of hubris and a desire to to prove themselves right, because their livelihood is on the line with what they say. Other people's lives are on the line, and their credibility. If they don't look right, if they don't sound right, nobody's going to have confidence in them, and that's when you lose customers and patients. So I finally found a doctor who was really willing to listen to me, and I was talking about brain fog and forgetfulness and losing hours at a time that I really didn't know where they had gone, and all of this feeling of heaviness in my body. So we started with ADHD. We looked back at my family history and realized that that probably is something I was struggling with. Um, then we discovered the thyroid issues because the dissociation got so bad that I would just be crying and smiling at the same time. My poor husband just did not know what to do with me. So we had a diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So at that point, I knew I was autoimmune. Um, just after that, I started getting really intense symptoms of fibromyalgia. I would go to hug my husband, and his beard would just hurt my cheek just by touching it. So I just dived really quickly into all these issues getting worse and worse, and my mental health was increasingly terrible because my life was just in chaos at that time, and my marriage was not in a good place. I just didn't have the energy to be the person I needed to be to support him through finishing grad school. Um, it's just a hard time to look back and think about. And I know that so many women find themselves in that situation and there just are no answers. Statistically, women aren't listened to very well by doctors when they say that they have a pain, they have these issues. The first neurologist I saw told me that it was just something related with anxiety and I should probably get on an antidepressant, and that was the end of that. Nobody wanted to hear really what I had to say, but it was getting worse and worse. I started becoming allergic to more and more foods or sensitivities. Like I would eat tomatoes or peppers and my mouth would just break out in blisters. It was really painful and they'd last for a week or so at a time. Um, the way I described it at the time was I felt like I had been just treading water with my health until suddenly I got swept out to the point where there was no hope of my touching bottom. I just felt like I was falling and falling and just totally numb to everything around me at the same time. And it was really difficult to find medication that worked. I was grateful that I did find some things that helped. Um, and the doctors that I did end up speaking with really showed me that there are physicians who care about their patients and about getting them better. And the relationship I found that worked best is finding a doctor who not only listens to what you say, but who's receptive when you bring your own research. I'd come with pages of notes about what was happening with me, and they would let me help make decisions about the direction that I wanted to go in. So, there's up and down with that. Even to this day, I did make the decision after 2.5 months on carnivore to cut my meds back because I felt over medicated. But it's still technically a full dose of both of my main meds, and I don't plan on changing that anytime soon. I think we all get so anxious to feel better and to prove that we can do it on our own and that we don't need any help from a substance or an outside source. But having those platforms to hang on to, especially when it comes to mental health, is so important. When you're dealing with things like food addiction and you just, you really just need something to hold on to, I have found. But over the course of all this, I slogged my way along. I made it to today. It's been about 15 years since I first really started feeling that something was wrong. Um, and so I'm now in uh, Southeast Texas near Houston with my little family. It's my daughter, my husband, and myself, and my best friend who is disabled physically also lives with us. So between us all, we're really neurodivergent, very quirky, and a lot of fun. Um, 3 of the 4 of us have ADHD. 2 of the family are on the autistic spectrum. So one of the things that I'm really anxious to explore as I go down this road and try to encourage my family to is I really want to see the effect that diet can have on those issues. Not that I think that autism has to have a cure or that there's anything wrong with someone on the spectrum, but just the idea that we can transform ourselves to be the best version of who we were meant to be. Um, I'm so excited to see the potential there is to live a better life. So we moved down here about a year ago. I was still in a really deep depression and just kind of that treading water feeling. I had finally found pain meds and an antidepressant that work, and it was my job at that point to keep everybody else going emotionally with their own worlds and needs. That's what a mom does. Everyone just kind of depends on me, so I have to be at my best, even when my best is next to nothing. Um, during all of this, I had tried again here and there to work with diet. My husband and I had tried keto in 2017. So I knew the benefits that could have physically and mentally. I had felt a bit better, but this was really during probably the hardest time in my life. And so the diet hadn't lasted long, and I really hadn't had the energy to try again on bringing my life to a higher standard. But I got to this past January and I just knew I had to do something different. I couldn't live anymore with that darkness, especially when the winter would hit. We had moved down here specifically for my health because my thyroid issue makes me very prone to pain and discomfort when it's either very hot or very cold. The worst being when I get over cold. So moving from the Rockies down by the ocean was the best thing we could think to do. And I finally started to come out of things and open my eyes to the fact that it was time to take a step forward. I quit my job. I really took a good look at myself and where I was and what I wanted to accomplish. It was the first time my daughter had been old enough to take care of herself and, depend on her friends for her social needs instead of me. And so I had time to apply things to my own life. I tried keto, as I said, in January of this year. I lasted about 6 weeks and I felt pretty good, but like a lot of people say, I really depended way too much on the keto foods that they market nowadays. And I just wasn't feeling very well. So it was really easy to slide from there into about a 4-month binge that really took a toll on me. But I was still searching. I was still hoping that I could figure out where I needed to go from here. I was down to pretty much nothing. I had to face the fact that when I looked in the mirror, there was nothing for me to identify with my sense of self. I had spent so long being everyone else's touchstone, the thing that kept them going, that I had nothing left in myself for me to depend on. Um, so that was where, as I said before, that I ran across some videos with Laura Spath and Kelly Hogan, and they just seemed so upbeat and so hopeful, and I almost just didn't dare to hope that this would work. I was so I was equally scared of what would happen if I tried one more thing as opposed to what would happen if I just sat and did nothing. And it was my friend who pulled me out of it. She spends so much time in bed. She's got degenerative disc disease and is heavily overweight. And also has a primary immunodeficiency that we discovered during COVID of all times. So she's just constantly not feeling well and catching every little bug that comes into the house. But she would sit on the couch sometimes with me and we would just watch YouTube video after YouTube video. And I hadn't gotten the courage yet to think about trying it until she turned to me and said, "I think this could help me." And so at that moment, it just became very real. It was like, there's nothing holding us back. We have nothing left to stand on but trying something new. So I made a grocery list, and the beginning of the next month, we went with it. I started the transition to carnivore on July the 1st. So I was on vacation at the time, but by golly, I wasn't going to let that stop me. I don't know, Dave, if it's okay if I pull up. I have a file here of my first day. Yeah. So
Oh,
bonus points
wow.
if you know where I am. That was my first day of
I'm gonna assume
transitioning to
you're the one
carnivore.
without the beard. I'm gonna
Yes,
guess you're the
I
one
am.
that
That's
doesn't have the
fine.
beard.
No, no.
Wow, what a difference.
So it is a difference. I It's been such a hopeful journey. I look at this picture and I could so easily see all the downsides and the heaviness that was in my life, but I was just so happy to have finally arrived at the starting line of life, if you will. I felt like I had finally found my freedom and I was ready to run with it. So this
Mm,
vacation was my gift to myself. Something that I enjoyed, just getting out of the house and discovering who I was again made me extremely happy. So, since then, I have really just tried to run with my diet and keep it simple. It's a real shame that I'm not near the family farm anymore and I can't get beef for $2 a pound because dad's willing to subsidize it. But, I'm in Texas at least, and if there's one thing Texans love, it's their meat. So we've learned a great deal about barbecuing and we've had a lot of fun. It's not hard to eat this way. I had a few times where, chewing on the fattier pieces of meat wasn't something that really appealed to me. I think I was more scared of myself and my reaction. But as I gained confidence in my ability to just make the food, eat the food, have a plan. We had been dealing with so many sensory issues and food sensitivities that I was essentially making a different meal for every person in the family 3 times a day. So to be able to simplify that and have one thing that everybody could depend on eating uh, made life a lot easier. And then as my energy levels increased and I hit that moment where my depression just disappeared, I had never, ever in my adult life thought that I would reach that point again of just feeling like that weight was lifted off my mind. And then the pain started going with it. So, about 6 weeks in, there was no going back. It's not even a decision anymore because there's nothing to go back to but pain and sadness. So, it doesn't matter how many times I may trip. I've just determined that I'm not going to let a speed bump be a stop sign. I have made little mistakes or had little cheats here and there, but there is nothing that could keep me from going back to this in the end. It's just been too good for me. My skin is doing great. Acne that I has just pitted my face for years has finally gone. I sleep more. I hear a lot of people say carnivores don't nap, but I beg to differ. It's been so long since I have slept this well and felt so good on waking up. The chronic fatigue is just gone as well. So I'm waking up again to who I am and what I want, and finding that I really want to be a part of this community. Um, I've been really fortunate. I'm You've probably run into Shane and Amy through Homestead How, the sightless carnivores. They actually live here in the same town that I do, so I've had the pleasure of going over and spending time with them here and there and making new friends, meeting new people online, and a lot of people that I really look up to. It's so good to know that we have these doctors that we can look to for advice and say, here's the credibility if you want to know why I'm doing it. But there's also people who have the big hearts, the compassionate carnivore side of things, just to take care of each other and realize that we can do this. And as a community, we can make sure that the truth about how we need to heal as a species is right in front of us. I'm very passionate about making sure that, especially those who are dealing with chronic pain, those who are neurodivergent, those who are deeply depressed, are able to find what they need and know that there is hope. Not just hope, but that success and being able to put this feeling of struggling behind them is something they can do and they can do it now. So I'm thinking I will probably end up um, starting my own channel. I've put up a few little feeler videos here as I've tried to get used to being in front of the camera. You can find me on YouTube at Chronically Carnivore because I am no longer chronically ill. I don't identify as being that anymore. it's not a part of who I am now. I'm going to be chronically carnivore. So that's who I am. That's where my life has brought me, and I wouldn't
Mm.
have it any other way.
How is everyone in the household, um, besides yourself doing with this? Like, has anyone moved over to this way of eating as well?
So once half of us, me and my friend, were determined, we kind of took everybody on the same boat. My daughter, being only 8 years old and very happy with her sugar filled life, was not anxious to join us, but she has a goal to eat one serving of meat every day. And if I can make sure that she's getting one piece of high quality meat, and that I'm not afraid to tell her that she's going to need to give up the sugar sooner rather than later, especially as she's unfortunately started to see some of her own problems. Even as young as 2, she started complaining of a stomach ache every day for years. She's already seen a gastroenterologist, she's already been in therapy. She knows that the chances of her ending up with a mind and a body like mine are pretty high, but I do want her to have a feeling of autonomy and a good relationship with food. So I'm not taking her choices away from her right now. We're just working on showing her what the right choices are and encouraging her with what we put in front of her. Um, so the two of us who first started it are still going pretty strong. I've dropped about 30 pounds, and we found out today that my friend has dropped about 25. She's corrected her sleep cycles. She's able to get out of bed more often. She does still get sick, but she gets over it much more quickly and doesn't get as sick as often. I'm really pleased to see what she's done, and I'm really proud of her and also grateful for the encouragement she's given me. My husband, he's still kind of dabbles back and forth. He likes to think he's on the low carb keto train, and he'll eat what I serve at dinner, but if there's a treat in the pantry he wants, he's not going to let that stop him. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But um I believe firmly in food choices. And as I've said, with sensory issues, when it's so hard to get a family member, or a group of family members to be in the same, sorry, to know what they like and what they want to eat and have that be the same thing for everybody is just really hard. So we're slowly inching our way there. Um, but yeah, if I'm in charge of the food budget, there's not much they can do about it. So I guess.
So, um, on that, like, how are you and your friends specifically eating? Like, are you still having 3 meals a day so you can eat at the same time as the rest of the family?
So we have a typical family dinner. That is our time to spend together, and that's important. Throughout the day, everybody kind of eats at different times, and I try to keep the fridge stocked with basics. Um, I believe in being practical. There's no way we're going to be able to do grass fed for everything, until
Mm.
I can get back to the family farm. But we will bulk buy ground beef, chuck roasts. I've got my appliances, my air fryer, my instant pot. And so we will just go back and forth between chicken wings, on, things out on the grill, steaks every now and then, roasts, and just always there are burgers and ground beef on hand. We avoid pork for food sensitivity reasons. Chicken's okay now and again. Fish as we get it, because being near the Gulf Coast, there is excellent seafood down here. So I'm always looking for something new to try and explore. Buying 10 dozen eggs at a time just so I don't have to constantly run back to the store.
That sounds like my fridge as well, 10 dozen
Yeah.
eggs. So, um, does your family back on the farm, do they know about this way of eating now?
So here we get to my biggest why. It does change for each of us, but in the last month, my mother has received a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. She came to this diagnosis while having gallbladder issues. So I have watched this poor, dear, beloved mother of mine drop weight and be unable to eat much of anything because the fat bothers her gallbladder, but other things bother her pancreas. So she has just withered, and I ache just watching her. I have given her as much information as I can about the benefits of at least fasting. If she won't do carnivore, at least, try to fast so that chemotherapy isn't as ravaging. And she's listening. She's making some really good choices and going in a good direction. My dad's a classic meat and milk man, so I don't think he would have a problem with it if I could just sit down with him and explain it a bit more, but he's pretty busy. Um, as for my siblings, we're all in different times of life. Some of us are more health conscious than others. I do have a sister who's vegetarian, and I don't think I'm going to be able to change that, but I have just tried to give them good information here and there, especially those of us who are more prone to mental health struggles. And it's only been 3 months. I've got plenty of time, and I'm in no rush. I just want to make sure that they're all happy.
In 3 months, you've dropped 30 pounds, your depression's gone, your acne's clearing, you're sleeping better, your chronic fatigue is gone.
Mhm.
Like, could you ever have imagined that there is one thing you could do that in 3 months everything would just change like that?
I would never, ever have expected it this fast. I had steeled myself going in that, Kay, you've been so sick for so long that this could really take a while. This is something you need to be prepared to be in the long haul for if you really want it. I was so used to struggling for every inch of progress that when I woke up to what seemed like a brand new world, no, I could never have imagined feeling that way that fast. But I'm gonna run with it. I'm, for the
Mm.
first time, just going to enjoy the feeling of running with it. I'm I'm getting to the point of finding what I want. I'm starting to exercise. The heat here in South Texas is no longer so unbearable, so I can get outside and walk. Um, Enjoying movement is really the next step in where I want to go with my life and my improvements.
Mm. And so, have you had any joint pain over the period of when you've been in high school, and how's that going?
So, fibromyalgia does imply a great deal of widespread pain that is coming and going. I cannot describe to you the feeling of being crushed by that from head to toe. It was, I mean, not only carrying 250 plus pounds of weight, but having to carry the weight of a body that was fighting me made everything 10 times worse. Um, I was in pain almost all the time. I could tell you when a storm was coming every time without fail.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's just so debilitating. People don't realize how an illness that you can't see from the outside can just ravage you. I had nothing left to fight with after getting done, just the basics and trying to move myself from point A to point B every day. So, there's a community that really needs to hear this there. We call ourselves spoonies. There's this theory that, you only have so much energy in the day. And if you equate that energy to a certain number of spoons that you can hand out, different activities cost different amounts of spoons. So I had gotten into that mindset of really just metering and deciding every minute of every day whether it was worth trying to get up and do something or if I just needed to rest. Um, I thought that that was my identity. That was going to have to be the people that I saw eye to eye with. And I still do. And I have a great deal of compassion for anyone who's struggling to get people to understand just how bad it is. But I'm free now. I don't have to identify as a spoonie anymore.
it's priceless to have a situation where you every time you give something, you know that that's just energy you're not getting back.
Yeah.
And to have that lifted is just priceless, right?
I could not put a price on the life that I have
Mm,
now. And so I owe eternal gratitude to you and to many of the other YouTubers who've encouraged me to continue on this path. What you are doing is invaluable, and that's why I felt I had to come on and speak,
mhm,
because the more voices, the better. And we
mhm.
really do need to be heard.
Yeah, true. And, just going back to this, so many improvements that you've had in the 3 months, that's one of the reasons that we have to be out there sharing other people's stories. Because if you were to talk to someone and say, "Look, 3 months and all this can be fixed," they'd be going, "Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll see you later." Yeah, and the
Yeah.
same with me. No one's gonna listen to just me or just you, but when we're all together, all saying the same thing, you know, it does have an impact.
Having a loud voice is key and patience is key. I may have people in my life who aren't ready to hear it yet, the way I wasn't ready, or, felt too afraid to really put my life as the priority. But I can be patient. I can identify those moments, and I'm darn well going to make sure I'm there when they need me. And until then, I'm going to gather in as many people as I can who are willing to spread the word that we can be healthy in spite of what doctors have told us is going to be permanent.
With all that change in the last 3 months, I'm sure your feelings about your future have changed as well.
Oh my goodness,
Um,
yes.
so where what's in store for Heidi? Where do you feel like things are gonna be with you and your family, a year from now, 2 years from now?
Well, sky's the limit for the first time ever. But I think that one of the messages about carnivore is that not only can this turn your health around, but that once your health is turned around, and this doesn't have to be the focus of your life, that anything can can be done. Then you can, set your own horizon. So I my daughter's almost 9. I haven't had the courage after the difficult pregnancy I had with her to go back and think about having another child, but maybe now I can. I don't have to think that at 36 maybe I'm too old to have another child, because I'm just too worn down, and I don't know that I would even be willing to live by the time they reached adulthood. But that's not the case anymore. I think I could handle that. I'm ready to expand my world and go out and do new things. Thinking about possibly going back to school, getting some sort of degree or certification, and finding a life where I can be productive and a part of society is really exciting to me now.
And so as part of that, as you mentioned before, you are considering, starting this YouTube channel,
Yes.
Chronically Carnivore.
Chronically Carnivore. I've got a few little test videos up so far, and I don't know that I'm ready to start interviewing anybody yet. I don't have your skills, but I do just feel like this chronic illness community needs to hear this. We've got people who are autoimmune who found it, people who are in it for the fitness benefits. There are so many reasons why we find ourselves here, but I think that the chronically ill community, as well as the neurodivergent community, those on the autistic spectrum, those with ADHD and other related difficulties, they need that support. And I haven't heard anyone willing to put that voice out there yet. And as I said, I really want to see what I can accomplish in my own family with getting us over the hurdles that have kept our world smaller than it should be.
Mm.
So come find me at Chronically Carnivore. I promise that now that I've made my debut into the carnivore YouTube community, that I will speak out and I will always find something to say that's worth hearing. So I'd love it if you'd come along.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for giving me the chance, Dave, and for being the voice that you are. I know that so many of us have enjoyed interacting with you or even just watching some of your more hilarious antics. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this and share it with you. So thank you.
Cheers.